Cheers, everybody. We are back for another edition of Bourbon on a Budget. Myself, TJ Pittenger, Ben Cock, and Brendan Sonnone. And we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Elliott Finebloom, who is a whiskey enthusiast. Am I saying that right? Brendan writes for a living. Aficionado, enthusiast. Brendan and I know Elliott and have known Elliott. He works for FSU, so up in kind of the world that Brendan lives in. And I'm trying to dabble in a little bit. And so we appreciate Elliott for taking some time and hanging out with us tonight. Elliott, tell the people a little bit about yourself before we get rolling here.
I've been begging Brendan to get on the podcast for like 6 months. So
he has,
it's been, he kept telling me, well, we got to get our timing down and we got to work on our core group before we bring in outsiders. So the sad part is he's taking no liberties at all with that story. That's entirely true. Those are the exact.
I've been begging him to get off for 6 months. So
whoa.
I'm gonna do my office space. So the pleasure's all on this side of the screen. Been enjoying my bourbon for quite some time. I wouldn't say, aficionado or just a fan like a lot of other people. Been at FSU now for about 20 years, working in the sports world. But I often tell people, my wife and I, second marriage for both of us, no kids. So the money I would be spending on sending my kids to summer camp all goes into bottles. So, whenever I have people come over and, they're a little, make a comment about my bourbon or whatever, I'm like, look, man, I don't have some of the other things y'all have. Your kids are going to love you for, the rest of your life. My bottles are going to turn out being empty and go in the recycle bin. So don't be too envious over it. But I really started with Scotch. And I think like most people, Eagle Rare kind of, was my gateway drug.
It's my favorite.
To bourbon. And since then I've been, making bad decisions on bourbon buying and selling and trading and wishing I had bottles back that I got rid of and all that, but enjoying every minute of it.
Ben says that Eagle Rare is his favorite. He rated Eagle Rare
good.
Like 3.75 or something. Let's just look it up
it's a great bottle
to make sure. So on April Fool's Day, I gave Ben a sample of Eagle Rare and told him that it was Basil Hayden. And so he went into the review thinking it was Basil Hayden. And he rated it 4.75. One of his favorite bourbons of all time. He could not let the biases. So anytime somebody brings up Eagle Rare, we have to remind Ben that he gave it 8 absolutely terrible.
It's fair bourbon.
Favorite bourbon 4.5.
I gotta try the Eagle Rare $1,700 bottle, the Double Eagle or whatever it is. I'm sure they'll serve it somewhere around for $400 a pour, which won't be worth it. But talk about a sexy bottle. That one is oof.
Yeah. The local cigar. I know you're a big cigar guy as well. The local cigar store by us, Davidoff, Ben, has one, and it's like $17,000. I don't think they're giving out pours. I each have to buy the bottle, and I'm just like, oh.
I may buy it just to give you a sample and then tell you it's Basil Hayden. Just that'd be worth it.
Hey, I was a big Angel's Envy Basil Hayden. Like as my journey continued, it all changes over time. Those were all bourbons I really enjoyed at some point in my life. Eagle Rare I still have tons of bottles of Eagle Rare, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of those, I mean, we'll jump into things here in just a minute, but like a lot of those are very entry level, right? Like it's hard to, we're going to review in the next episode something that's 110 proof. It's hard to give a new person that's just getting into bourbon that, right? But something that is approachable is Basil Hayden, right? Is something that's a little lighter on the palate. But then once you've wrecked yourself with stuff that's like 110, 120, 130 proof, it's hard to pick up a lot of flavor out of some of those other ones. So those are, there's a reason that Basil Hayden is still one of the highest selling bourbons every year, because it's approachable for new people. So,
and the thing is, when you become, and I'll hate myself for doing the air quotes, a bourbon guy, and you go out and you really only like to drink bourbon, you better like some available bourbons because those are going to be your choices. You're going
Right.
to, most places are going to have an Eagle Rare. Most places are going to have, a 4 Rose, a small batch, and so you better, find the enjoyment in those because a lot of times that's, what your selection is going to be. It's going to be Woodford, it's going to be Knob Creek, and it's going to be Eagle Rare.
Yeah. Especially like you're not like your bourbon bars obviously are going to do a little bit better, but yeah, if you're just going to like a regular restaurant or regular anywhere, like that's it. It might just be Woodford and Belle Meade, that might be the only thing you've got. And so, it's Derby time and pour me a Woodford.
Hey, don't take a shot at Belle Meade. I like Belle Meade.
No, I don't have any problem with Belle Meade. I've got some finished ones. I know you're not a big fan of that, but all right, so cool. So tonight we are going to get into just a conversation with Elliott, getting into bourbon, some of his collection. I know you're a big Wild Turkey guy. Then we're going to get into a replacement bourbon. We've got our 5th one. We're done replacing stuff after this week. We've got our replacement segment, and then we'll get into some pursuits and purchases that we've all kind of had over the last week or so. Ben and I went to a bourbon festival this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that. That was a ton of fun. Yes. And then we'll get out of here and then we'll preview what we're reviewing at the end of the show. So, Brendan, I will let you start it off. But let's get into chatting with Elliott a little bit about his whiskey journey and the Wild Turkey that he's so fond of.
Elliott.
I knew this was going to happen.
What is this? Brendan's,
Brendan, hold on.
Make it a second.
We said it was dial-up. Hey, Brendan, your internet's terrible. You got to fix it. You look like Newberg on the roll-up. Look terrible. Let me text him. Whew, how embarrassing.
He's probably still stalking.
Hey, bro. Okay.
All righty. Well, how about we keep going then? Do you want to keep going or do you want to just edit this out?
I'll edit this for sure. I'll edit all this.
Jeez. He's done. Brendan's no way. I can hear you guys. You can't hear me.
He just texted that he can hear.
You can't hear me.
Yeah, he's so full of crap.
Oh, goodbye, Brendan. Oh, here he goes.
Dude, just come get it yourself, Ben. You got a second until Brendan gets back.
Yeah. Jeez, what is this? Okay.
I think he's sabotaging this on purpose because I said I wanted to start doing these live, and so he doesn't want to do it live. So he's like, "Oh, Ashley, make sure you stream 16 things of Netflix right now."
And he knew it because I've been dying to get on, so he wanted to.
He'd screw up your episode.
You on.
Yeah.
No, he'll blame me for probably screwing it up.
Oh no, it's his every week. Like this is not a new thing.
All right. I mean, we're literally live streaming two feeds from my house right now. Brendan can't even keep one going. Oh my gosh.
Brendan put all these awkward questions in this write-up and like is going to make me ask them. Did you see some of these questions? I hate this guy. I'm not even letting him back in when he gets back in. All right, he said to go ahead. He's going to reset his modem and then he'll jump back in when he can. So
these are weird questions. Like,
like that first one.
Yeah, above or below average.
Where do you see that? You're so weird. I was like, man, I don't even see that in the rundown. All right, we will. I don't remember how I ended that, but we'll go back into it and say. But first, before we get
the first one,
yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Hey, be quiet. I gotta edit this. I gotta edit like 3 times.
I didn't see it.
All right, Brendan having a little bit of a technical difficulty over there. I don't know what's going on in the Sonone house, but we're going to move right along without him, and we'll add him back when he gets here. So we're going to start with Elliott, whiskey enthusiast and Wild Turkey collector. We hear you've got a pretty big collection. This is this is Brendan's wording, so I'm going to ask it exactly like he wrote it, but maybe somewhat of an indelicate question. How big is it? The collection.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm not a bottle counter, but I probably have 150 open bottles of bourbon, and
Oh my gosh,
not Scotch. We say whiskey because if it's not Kentucky, if you want to get into that whole argument. But yeah, I probably got about 150 open bottles right now.
How many unopened, if you had to guess? I'm not going to come count, but
not many. The only really, I mean, I'm a guy who you hear this in the bourbon community. It's a big, collect, sell, trade, drink. I drink, but I have my vintage wild turkeys that I know I hear so many people tell me how good they are, and I just haven't been able to crack them yet because I just love having this vintage turkey collection. To me, turkey is like the ultimate bourbon. It's like the bedrock bourbon. So, I was been able over the years to kind of mostly trade. People will go crazy. You end up with a bottle of Pappy or BTAC or something, and you can really turn it for a nice old turkey. So yeah, those are the only ones that I don't open, and I will open them. I just love looking at them, and I just love them. And it sounds crazy, I know, but I'm a drinker, so everything else, that's why they're all open. There's not a lot. The only other ones that are unopened are just the ones I haven't got to yet that I will.
Yeah, Ben and I are very much like that. Like I have traded, I have sold some things. But if it's in my house, it's open unless I just haven't gotten to it, right? Like I bought 5 things that week and just, haven't gotten a chance to open it. The only exceptions to that, I think in my house are the Blantons with my kids' birthdays on them. Like that's just like when they turn 21, like I'll drink it with them, like that's kind of my, and so like that to me, that's, it's just the Blantons, right? It's not anything crazy that I'm holding on to. Like we've been fortunate and lucky to run into some BTAC this year. I've got a George C. Stagg open in my house. Ben has one here that's a handy. Like I don't. Now, if I'm going to trade, if I buy something with the intention of trading for something else, I mean that's one thing. But yeah, I don't have a lot of unopened in my house. So I'm glad that you're kind of the same way. With the exception of the really old like antique-ish stuff.
Yeah, and I think trading is the way I built some of the stuff I really wanted. I've learned in my experience the selling is a more empty. Like at the time, it feels great. Like, oh my God, I'm turning this I made $200. It's like then 5 years later, I'm like, damn, was that $200 really worth not having that bottle? That I had, some of those special Russell Reserve bottles that were the I can't remember the years on them, but they came in the wooden cases. They released 2 different versions of it. I picked one up at ABC one year. I was like, why is this on the shelf? And like, couldn't wait to sell it. It's like, maybe I made a couple $100 on the sale. If you hit a really hot bourbon, a 300, 400, maybe if you're lucky. I know that's not small potatoes, but over time, I've been more happy with the trades I've made that brought me a bourbon back. And I know people say, well, you trade it for money, then you buy what you want. And I get it. But yeah, getting a bottle to trade and to build up your collection is definitely something that I like doing.
Yeah.
So if you are walking into a store right now and there's a Russell's 13 at MSRP, are you buying? You're buying 2, drinking 1, and then trading 1, or is selling pretty much non-existent anymore? It's all just like, hey, I'll trade, but it's not worth my time trying to sell. It's not what I'm there trying to accomplish.
If we find a Russell Reserve 13, I don't know. I don't know if it's one of those things that happens a lot that it's so rare at the start, and then it becomes less rare, and then sometimes you do have to hit the trade or the sell market quick. But the best thing that's happened to me really is pick up 2 and sell 1 for MSRP to somebody in a group.
Yeah.
You will not believe the way that comes back on you over making a couple $100. I've gotten so many great bottles because people remember, like there's a few, BTAC bottles I've gotten that I've been like, hey, I paid $119 for it. Let's do a raffle. Yeah. Whoever gets it, just pay me the cost. That comes back on you so many times. People remember that, and they're like, hey, I got a great bottle. I'd love to pay you back and, just pay me cost. I think it pays you. It pays back for collecting that goodwill. We know there's a ton of flippers and a ton of people who scam, but the bourbon community is in a large part generous as hell. And if you build up that goodwill, it's going to pay back 10 times over the years. So yes, get two and maybe offer one to a group at MSRP and drink one.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's not something I'll just be very transparent. That's not something I've ever done or heard of, but that's an excellent way to look at it. Like you said, it's great to get that $300, or whatever, that you make right at the time. But man, if you really get something you like later, how much happier are you? Like I'm looking right now for the birthday bourbons, in 2018 and 2020 when Bryant and Elena were born. And so, yeah, like to be able to get one of those. And now obviously if I get a Pappy and sell it and then use the money, I mean, that's one thing, but yeah, I like that idea a ton. You mentioned your love for Wild Turkey. You think that's just kind of the mega, the classic, the ultimate bourbon. How did you fall in love with Wild Turkey?
I never, and this is like, I think most people kind of went through the process of drinking current turkey and, and it was like, it's got its iconic place in today's world too. But I never drank turkey at that point. I started getting into the 8101s, which is the, the regular turkey, but back from the 80s and 90s, and was blown away by how good they were. And this was back when, they were like $100 a bottle on the secondary, for like a $22 bottle that, if you could find it on the shelf anymore, which, is hard. But that kind of just kind of sparked me with turkey. And I just got so enamored with just like the look, the packaging, everything about it to me just screamed what bourbon is, So I started, it happened with me that I was able to trade some stuff. There's certain bottles that, like you say, fall into your lap or somehow, end up in your hands. And, I would trade them for, I would always be looking for certain turkeys, anything that's older, a little bit rarer. And, the more I got them, the more I just loved having them, and I can't even tell you it's because I love drinking them all because, like I told you, I'm an idiot and haven't opened them.
Speaking of older turkeys, so Elliott gave me this little, it's empty now, it's poured into this glass, but this is a 8-year Wild Turkey 101, 8 years old. A little bit of background, Elliott, can you give the listeners at home, I guess, how old that pour is that you shared with me, and I guess how you see the difference? Here's the 101 current. For people watching, here is the 8-year that you gave me, and the color difference is vast, and the nose, the taste, it's all just extremely different than what we get now.
I think it was a 92, Brandon.
Okay.
It was early 90s. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, back in the day, 100 is a lot for a $20 bottle, but they're going for $250, $300, $400 now. So depending on the age. So yeah, I was buying those quite a bit when I could find them. I wish I had bought more, not to flip or to sell, just to drink. Because they're so cool that this shelf bourbon that, how it's viewed today versus, back then, it was an everyday drinker. And now we talk about it, and my friends and I are just like, what made it so good? What was it? Higher quality production? Was it, we've talked about maybe something happens in the bottle, although, everybody will tell you nothing really ages in a glass bottle that's sealed for bourbon wise. When you open it, maybe you get some, different things once you've opened a bottle, but I don't know what it is. I guess that's maybe part of why, it's a little fascinating and it's just delicious. Let's face it, we all drink the bourbon because we love the way it tastes, and it's delicious.
It is amazing. It's not even the same. The 92 version that you shared with me, Elliott, thank you for that. And then versus the current 101, it's not even the same bourbon. It's not even remotely close. It's amazing how much that's changed over the years. So I'm not sure if the guys have asked you this question yet. It's a little indelicate, so excuse me. How big is it? And by it, I mean your Wild Turkey collection.
We definitely asked that.
Just like that,
no,
too,
we
right?
didn't talk specifically about the Wild Turkey. We talked a little bit about some of the other bottles, but yeah, I mean, I think it's not crazy big. It's like 15 very select, or maybe 17 pretty rare and hard to find bottles. I'm not big in getting the decanters. I know a lot of people like collecting the decanters. That's not as interesting to me. Those are a little bit, you see those sometimes pop up a little more often, and then you got all the people saying, well, there's lead poisoning in those and all this. So, But yeah, I probably have about 17 what I consider, older, rarer wild turkeys.
What would you say your prize, like your favorite wild turkey bourbon that you have in your collection is? If you can narrow it down, I know it's like probably picking between kids to pick out a favorite.
Well, Single Cask Nation. I don't know if you guys know about Single Cask Nation, but they do single barrel picks, and they used to do as a I'm trying not to get too personal. As a Jewish man, they used to do a whiskey Jubilee series, and they're Jewish guys, and they just pick unbelievable bottles, and they picked a wild turkey whiskey Jubilee that I love having in my collection. I have a Kentucky Spirit that's I see they're selling for like $1,500 right now. It's a Japanese import or Japanese export, I guess. So those are cool to have. The donut is like a staple in your wild turkey collection. So I got a donut I love, but yeah, the one from Whiskey Jubilee Wild Turkey is a kind of a rare one that I really like, and got the sentimental value with the whole Jewish thing.
You talked a little bit about being able to trade things in groups and do different things like that. How do you go about finding and procuring? Like, we all have jobs. We all have like places we have to be during the day. Like, some of us have some flexibility. Actually, all of us do have a little bit of flexibility, but like, sometimes you have a meeting, you can't just always run out. Right. But like, how do you go about like finding stuff, procuring stuff aside from maybe like trading in groups and stuff?
I think we all know it's hard as hell now. I mean, this is it's become such a phenomenon that it's almost impossible these days unless you have some sort of connection or a buddy who has a liquor store thing, and I don't have any of that. But what I think is so great is like every 5 months, what's readily available is now kind of rare. Like you could have picked up, and maybe not 5 months, but a year, maybe a year and a half ago, which in the bourbon world is an eternity. But the 4-row single barrel store picks were about $65. Now they're going for $400, almost all of them. Because they're not doing as many barrel picks anymore. We've all talked about Smoke Wagon. Smoke Wagon, we all probably could have, been Smoke Wagon millionaires had we had a little foresight, but only 5 months ago or only 6 months ago, So while it's harder than ever to go out and find, a Pappy or whatever, stuff that's getting value is shifting all the time now. So 5 months ago, there was stuff that wasn't as valuable. It's 8 times the price or 6 times as much now as it was just, a year ago. So I think that's the only thing that gives you hope is that, there's still stuff out there that's becoming, collectible and a chance to build your collection through that, but I mean, we all hope, we all have that same dream. We're going to walk into some random liquor store. Oh, nobody knows about this one. They have all this stuff on the shelf, and it just isn't happening anymore. That I think you guys have probably talked about the ABC Vault, which I'm a big fan that they're doing that. I mean, it hurts a little because they're back in the day. I used to be able to just be friends with the guy at ABC, and he'd hold me a bottle of George T. Stagg from the BTAC collection, and he'd say, "Hey, I knew you'd come in. I have this for you." But at least it gives everybody an opportunity to get their hands on some of those bottles now.
Yeah. Do you like where the bourbon scene is right now, as far as like the hype train of like everything Buffalo Trace is super, allocated? Like I was in Walmart today and they were allocating Buffalo Trace base, like 1 per customer, and I think that's grown over the past couple of years to it just being like bourbon is just so sought after and so tracked, and everything's allocated now. There's certainly there's good about people enjoying bourbon because we talk on this podcast a lot about how bourbon's all about people and stories and just hanging with with good people. And so the more people that are drinking bourbon is the better. But you also have the other consequence of now Buffalo Trace is allocated. So where do you view the bourbon kind of market right now versus what it was 5-10 years ago?
That kind of stuff stinks, obviously, that you can't go in and pick up, those kind of bottles. But I think what's happening is a lot of stuff, not the high end, but a lot of those allocations, I think the smart people in bourbon who just don't dabble know there's a ton of good bottles on the shelf that may be equal to a Buffalo Trace or equal to an Eagle Rare that you can find. And, some of the other people who only know a few different names are, freaking out. Like, I'm not a huge Blanton's fan, and I know that's going to be, probably sacrilege to some, but
Nope.
I'm never going to be worried that
not on this show, Elliot.
Yeah.
Not on this show.
Not here.
I'm never going to be worried that a Blanton's allocated and some guy tells me, "Oh, I'm a huge bourbon fan, man. I love Blanton's," and I'm like, "Good. Go find all the Blantons you can and leave me the other stuff." So it's frustrating. I think we all, I don't know how far back y'all go, but you could walk into ABC 7 days a week and get Weller 12, no problem. You can get the 175s of Weller 12 on the shelves, no problem. And it sucks that those bottles are now almost, they're in the vault and you can't get them, because the Weller 12 at the MSRP is a great friggin' bourbon,
Mm-hmm.
But then somebody's gonna have to pay $200-$300 to get a chance to try Weller 12, and it's not a $200 or $300 bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great $30 12-year bourbon when you could get it on the shelf. So, it just, I think, and the other thing people talk about, which I think is accurate, is the boon in bourbon has given life to so many others, the smoke wagons, and so many of these other distillers that have come on the scene. I like Wilderness Trail in the fact that they do a lot of barrel picks. I love that there's some of these companies that are still doing barrel picks, and I love trying to barrel pick. So, it's given the rise to the new riffs, the smoke wagons, the Wilderness Trail. So the demand has helped in that sense. There's more choice now.
What do you, we talk a lot about that, about, you mentioned it, just how something being allocated doesn't make it better. And we know that, but if we see anything allocated on the shelf, minus like maybe blends but even that, like if I see something allocated on the shelf at MSRP, like I'm going to get it and I don't need it. And I know there's better stuff for the same price, but we've talked about that. What do you, and we rave on this show over Old Forester 1920. And we say that, like, man, that could be the one that like isn't so easy to find on shelves again soon because it's cheap. Yeah, cheap enough, right? $60, 115 proof, so much flavor,
great,
fantastic bottle. So I'm stealing that one from you. Do you have any ideas on like what else? Like, what are like some of those that like could be gone soon, like that are like kind of the hidden gems that people need to be looking out for? But maybe not in Tallahassee. You don't want them to buy your stuff.
No, totally agree on the 1920. I mean, it's phenomenal, and there's things that are underrated. I think Brennan and I talked one night about I've been kind of keeping my eye out for the Larceny Barrel Proof, because I think the Larceny Barrel Proof is a great bottle. Now it's another one that's a little bit harder to find. I haven't seen it around nearly as much, but I think that's a really good bottle. But the Rebel Yell Barrel Proof too, but they've marked that thing up like $20. That was a $50 bottle. Now it's up to 70 or something. It's a really nice pour, but they've tacked on a big price tag increase. But that one's been showing up lately. I like those. I wish there was more places in town that were carrying some of those newer brands we talk about. I know Smoke Wagon's not coming to Florida, but Wilderness Trail in Tallahassee, but it is in Florida in a lot of places. Those are really cool. I like drinking those. I'll try. I think the Smooth Ambler still does a lot of barrel picks. And you can still find some of those barrel picks, which is nice. The Smooth Amblers is still a bottle that's on the shelf in the 12 and 13 year, area that's, $70, $80, which, I know it's a little high, but, for a 13 years, not a bad price. So, I think there's still stuff out there that you can go to and drink. And like you said, Old Forester 1920 is probably one of the easiest, best bottles still to grab, any day of the week, because it's everywhere and it's awesome.
Before we go too much past that, the proof is a little lower. Do you like the 1910 as well? Because I actually like the 1910 better because it's like the toasted barrel, and these guys give me so much crap for it. So you don't have to like it better, but do you at least like it?
It's the wrong opinion.
I do. I have the 1910. That's the 1910 and 20 are the two I have on my shelf. Yeah. So I do like it. I don't like it as much as the 1920, but yeah.
Preach.
I do like it.
I've blended them. And I've made that. Have you made the 1915?
I have not had the 1915.
Yeah, no, they say like I've blended them and they are good. Like they kind of balance each other out. Like I don't know, the 1920 drinks pretty hot to me. And I know it's 115 proof, but the sweetness of that and the high proof of the other they do make a really nice blend. I blended a couple of bottles of mine and let them sit for like 3 weeks, and it was pretty good. Brendan, don't shake your head at me right now. Ask your question before I get mad.
Enough of TJ's shameless toasted bottle barrel labeling.
Fanboy.
Oh my
Fanboy.
God! Every episode, I swear. So keeping in mind with value, Elliott, and then combining it with your love of Wild Turkey products. Right now, like, what's the best bang for your buck Wild Turkey product that you can find? I guess relatively available, even if it's like a limited edition. If you can like reasonably find it, even on secondary market, what's the best Wild Turkey product out there right now, in your opinion?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
You know, there's been some of those Master Keep releases. That the rare breed, of course.
That's right.
You know, some of the
That's
Master Keep releases have been really good, and they're expensive. You know, they are 150 or depending on the release. But if you live in a city with a Total Wine, they're on the shelves there quite often. You know, and I know a lot of people do live in those, you know, cities with those kind of big box stores. Those are sitting on the shelves a lot. Some of them are really good. You know, the Decades, I think, was one that was really well received. You know, I think that's probably where I look. You know, there's the Father and Son that's out now that I've been trying to find. I haven't been able to track that down yet.
I'm with you.
I know we're all looking to try the 13, only because not only is it, you know, the newest release, but people are kind of saying it's pretty darn good on top of that. But I don't, so you know, I've been drinking other stuff more, but I think, like we talked about, you're going to hear coming up in a little bit, some of the Russell Reserve barrel picks are, you know, great to pick up as well. You know, those are fun picks, and they give you at least a little bit of a different experience every time you find a different barrel.
So Brendan tells me, and Ben's not a big fan either, but I want to ask you, you're not a big fan of finishes, right? Like whether that's finished in is it just like stuff that's finished in like another kind of alcohol, or do you also not like the toasted finishes or the double oak stuff, or what are your thoughts on finishes, and what do you dislike about them? Because Ben hates them too. Brendan and I are kind of fanboys on them, but I want to hear from you.
Well, I'm okay. I'm not a big fan of the finishes in other liquor barrels, wines, beers, you know, cordials. I was joking around with Brendan one night. I'm like, does bourbon not taste good enough that you need to add
aged in rum,
orange curacao flavor to it? Or
no, that's over the top, sir. I don't like orange curacao.
It tastes so good as it is. I don't need the other stuff. And for me, I think a lot of them end up just a little too sweet for me. Really, is all it is. But they have the up at one of the locals. They have the barrel bourbon that's finished in like 4 different sea glass. I think it's called.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
We drank it last week.
We just reviewed it last week.
Guess who bought it and shared it with everyone last week, Elliott?
Okay, so how was it? I mean, people are saying it was pretty good.
Dessert.
Okay, I don't like finished bottles. It was very good. Like it's 115 proof. And it was definitely on the sweeter spectrum. We drank it after, Brendan, what was our first bottle we reviewed? Because we did 3 samples last week.
We did the kosher rye from Buffalo Trace first.
So we started with that, and then we went into the seagrass. And we definitely, when I first drank it, I said, I was like, I'm picking up like peaches, and that goes to like the apricot brandy barrels. And so it was definitely on the sweeter end. It was not as sweet as other finished bottles that I've had. Like if you go and get like a rum cask double rye, or, you know, that like super sweet product. And so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a 115 proof bottle that drank at 108 to 110. And I was pretty pleased with it. So just my typical review.
The big difference there being that the massive proof combined with the sweetness brought it down. When you age a double rye that's like 90 proof down, or no, double rye is closer to 100, isn't it? It's 50.5. But when you have 100 proof, something that's finished in rum, you know, it's going to be a little bit different there. So,
yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about Brent the other night because I like the Parker's Heritage Collection, and I poured a glass of one of my bottles of that. And I realized it was finished in a orange curacao barrel.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, holy shit. I said, holy crap. I've been making fun of Brendan and all this, but it didn't have that sweetness. So it's probably something I should try more, but at the price, I just feel like, taking the risk. There's some other things I'd probably prefer taking the risk on than the ones that are finished. Like, High West is a company I like. I like some of their boards, and they do a lot in those kind of finished barrels. Their new double rye, I think, is one, and I was like dying to get it. They rebranded it with this cool black label and everything, and then I saw finished in, some wine Madeira barrel or something.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
But
one thing that
but that's all. It's the sweetness mainly for me that kind of gets me.
I would agree. I think one thing that has turned me off historically with like barrel finished product is like it was originally there to like cover up bad juice to just make it kind of like palatable. But now if you get the right distillery with the right blender or, head distiller there, then they're going to put out pretty good product. But I think originally when they first started, it was like, how can I make this drinkable? Right. And that's what it turned into. And so now it's getting a little more refined, but it really goes back to, do I trust the distillery more than anything else?
And that's the thing, because like you guys said, the market just blew up and every gimmick in the world was coming out to try to get people to buy stuff. So yeah, it's like, with the Jefferson's Ocean, it was like that was pushed. And I've had a couple of their releases that weren't bad, but I'm not going to go and buy a bunch of Jefferson Ocean just because, they put it out to sea for a little while,
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's why, that's why what's so great when you do bourbon right with friends, with community, with places that you can go and meet other bourbon drinkers, you get that feedback. And then, when you trust people's palate, they say, yeah, this one is really good. You're going to try it, of course.
Yeah.
Because somebody who you trust and they like it, and they're you rely on what they tell you. So that's why the community part for both building your collection, for knowing what to drink, all that is so great about bourbon.
So we are going to jump to our next segment. We have 2 seconds. We'll get out of here. These are much quicker, but we appreciate you kind of running through your collection and how you got into it and stuff. It's always fascinating. Our first show, we definitely went into like how we fell in love with bourbon. I never get tired of hearing people talk about how they developed a love for something I love. So it is always neat. We do a replacement segment. This is our 5th one.
Sorry, I'll just
go ahead.
No,
go ahead. Sorry.
You really start to tell your collection when not the bottles, the shelves. Oh, this shelf's not good enough to hold my bottles. Now I gotta get the bigger shelf. This shelf. That's when you realize you're starting to grow your collection. And it's not the amount of bottles; it's the type of shelves that you have to keep replacing. And you can fit everything on the top of a table at one point in your life, and you're like, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, my wife's our pantry slowly got taken over into a small little alcohol cabinet, and now I have 2 of those. One in the under the stairs closet, and my wife's like, "You're not buying another one of those." And I was just like, we'll see.
We'll see.
Amazon sells them really cheap, so we'll see about that. We talked about finishes. We're gonna replace something that's finished, and you can replace this however you want. Brendan, you have the bottle. So talk to us about what we're replacing, and let's each replace it, and then we'll move on to our final segment and get out of here. Brendan, go ahead.
All right. Well, I didn't know I was going to be talking about it, but I was going to show you guys. I got a Midwinter Night Dram. It's from High West Distillery, which Elliott mentioned earlier. They do a lot of sourcing, but they do a really great job with it. We've talked about it before on the show. TJ is a huge fanboy. The Midwinter Night Dram specifically is a rye whiskey. I think it's their double rye, if I'm not mistaken.
Rendezvous.
It's the Rendezvous rye. Okay, it's the Rendezvous rye that is finished in a port barrel wine cask. So port wine is it's a red wine, but more of like a ruby red. It's from I think it's like Portugal or Spain in that region, and it's more of a dessert wine. So it's going to be very sweet. So what it does is it takes that rye spice and it smooths it out a little bit with that sweet port finish. I love it. I think it's great. I can hear Elliott rolling his eyes from here. I can't even see it. I can hear it. But it is a very. Go ahead.
I like that bottle, Brandon. I do. I like that bottle. Yeah, I do.
I like it.
I like it. Sorry,
of the finished products out there, it's probably one of the most well received ones, generally speaking. It's going to be about TJ. How much? So I've seen it for $85 to $100 in person. Never in Tallahassee. One time in upstate New York, another time in Gainesville. But don't you have a Connect, TJ, that can maybe get a little bit lower than that on
used to be able to get a little bit easier. It's getting tougher and tougher, like everything else. But MSRP is between $90 and $100.
Okay, all right. But secondary, if you go ahead and Google that and try to get it online,
it's going to be up over $250. Anywhere. Well, depending on like which act and scene it is. I mean, you might be looking at anything from like $220 to $400.
All
like
right.
if it's something really crazy.
So a coveted whiskey, one that only comes out once a year, allocated, an annual release. So one that is hard to find. I found it a couple times, but you have to really go out of your way for it. Like I said, I was almost in Canada when I found it for the first time in person.
So who wants to go first? If you are telling the listeners what to buy instead of that, right? That's a hard one to buy. You can't just run up to your local liquor store and buy that. Ben, start us off. What are we replacing Midwinter Night's Dream with?
Okay, so this is very difficult because there are not a lot of rye finished in like port cask bottles out there. Certainly at the price point at like $80. So if you're going to have to go and find something similar to this, I'm going to say probably, it ain't cheap. I'm going to say you go Whistle Pig 12-year Old World, which is their rye finished in Madeira, French Sauterne, and port cask. You get a little bit of all of it, right? You're going to spend $120 on the bottle, which ain't the best trade, right? Ain't the best replacement, but you can find it at $120.
It's cheaper than Midwinter's on secondary, right?
I
like the Whistle Pig 12. It's my favorite of the Whistle Pigs. I like it more than the 15, but I also like finished stuff. But
I also think most of Whistle Pig is overpriced in general, right? So you're planning on spending a lot of money, spend a little less, save $60 or $100 in getting the Whistle Pig 12. But the uniqueness of Midwinters is really hard to replace. There's a great story there. We talked about bourbon being a story, and it tells a great story being part of like a play on Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream and annual releases, and they're named after act and scene. So it's really freaking cool. But if you need to go and grab a bottle immediately that'll replace it, Whistle Pig 12 is probably your best option.
So your replacement is for people to just go out and buy Midwinters.
Yes, your replacement is go just save up, just wait and buy it.
Amazing.
But there's not a whole lot out there.
It's a tough one. We've done other ones. Elliott, we've replaced blends. We've done Weller 12. We've done Toasted Barrel Mixers, and then we did what was the last one?
That was it.
Blends. It was blends.
No, we did blends. Blends, Weller 12, Mixer, Toasted Barrel.
This is four.
No, this is fifth. We did one last week. What was it?
Weller.
Stag Junior. So anyway, this one's tough because of the finish. Who wants to go next? Elliott, Brendan?
I've got one. I can only imagine what Elliott. Oh, go ahead, Elliott. Because I can only imagine. No, Elliott, go.
I just a few ones to throw out there, and they're not rye. I don't believe off the top of my head, but Bauman does a port finish, which is not readily available on shelves, but probably not going to be a secondary mark that's really high. One of my favorite companies, 1792, they do a port finish. If you wanted to try something that's got that kind of flavor, and then something that's just not port finish, but try a different, bottle from them. Try, the Borai or the Son of Borai or the, I think it's Borai, Bourbon Rye. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or I like light whiskeys actually. And I know a lot of people don't, but their American Prairie light whiskey is good. So if you are saying, okay, maybe I'm not going to find that exact expression, try another bottle from High West. They're all over the shelves and you can get them. So.
Agreed.
Brendan?
So I have a suggestion, but I have two suggestions. One I have not tried, but it's called Dad's Hat. It is a rye whiskey, and they have a port finish version of it. So it's a port finish rye, similar proof, maybe even a little bit higher than what the Midwinter Night's Dram is. You can find it at my ABC on sale quite a bit, like in the $40 range. And I've seen reviews where people have said, like, this is comparable to Midwinter Night Dram, except for it's half the price and it's accessible. I have not tried it, so I can't say I would recommend it, but that is one that if you're looking for something almost ideal in terms of type of whiskey and type of finish, that would be one. I am going to recommend, I'm going to stick with the port barrel finish here. This is Chattanooga whiskey, which I've talked about here on the show before.
Yes.
This is their port cask. Look how I don't know if it's showing on the video, probably not doing it justice, but it is super ruby red, super port cask influence. It's tawny port, similar proof to the rye whiskey of the Midwinter Night Dram, but this is not a rye mash bill. It's an undisclosed mash bill. I do believe it's high malt, so it's a little funkier, a little different than what you would expect, like a bourbon that's finished in port cask to be. And it doesn't quite have the spice of the rye, but it does have this weird, almost kind of nutty taste, like walnut, not like peanut, but more like walnut. It's good. It's interesting. If you like the port finish in the Midwinter Night Dram, I think you'll probably enjoy this too for about half the price and readily available online for sure. You can find it. You can order online for about $45-$50.
So mine's a little tougher to find, but it kind of goes along with what Elliott was saying. I like the sweeter stuff. I like a lot of the High West finishes, and you can usually find them as store picks. Elliott mentioned that he saw one just the other day. It was the I think it was the American Prairie that was in the Madeira, but whichever. Like I have a double rye in a I have a double rye in a Madeira. I have a double rye in a Madeira. I have a double rye in a rum. I have a double rye in a sherry cask. I have a double rye. Like I like the finishes, and those are not. I mean, you're not always going to find them on stores, but a lot of stores around me do them fairly often, and so I'm able to find one every couple of months. And so I like the High West finish stuff. They're not terribly expensive. You can get them between $45 and $50. I think I paid $55 at one time, but I like those a lot. So that would be my replacement.
And
to
if
finish
you live
off
in
that.
if you live in a ship-to state, there's tons of those store picks that you can get shipped to Florida. Now you pay an extra $15 on shipping, but yeah, you can go online to different liquor stores around the country who ship and find those as well.
Yeah. So that's a replacement segment. Our last segment that I know we've been on here for a little while. We started late, so wrapping up here. But our favorite segment of the show, pursuits and purchases, trademark, copyright, patent pending, all those things.
Yes.
Ben, let's start with you. What are you looking for, or what have you bought in the last week?
So today I was meeting up with TJ at a Walmart that had a liquor store attached to swap some samples, and I walked in and they had E.H. Taylor small batch for like $45. So how do I pass that up, right? Like, it's not the best thing in the world.
At Walmart, that's great. That's a great
Walmart, right?
That's
For 45 bones, like, you just got to buy that thing.
All right, we're reviewing that next week, and you're sending us all samples.
Anyway, so back to the show. You have to buy that.
Absolutely insane.
Oh,
insane.
Elliott, when you were sharing, it's crazy. When you were sharing, Elliott, your like experience with things with whiskey just jumping up in price and like what changes every few months or so. When I started collecting, maybe about like 3 years ago, E.H. Taylor was readily available for $45. The rye of E.H. Taylor was readily available just about like 3 or 4 different stores. You can get it like it was like 5 or 6 bottles deep. Would even find the single barrel expression a couple times, like, and now like it's almost impossible. So good on you.
The barrel,
good on you, Ben.
The barrel proof. I mean, I lived in Sarasota, Tampa for a year and a half, 2 years in between my time at FSU, and I think I want to say Jay's. I can't remember. It's Jay's Wine Store. It's down near Sarasota. They get cases of barrel proof, man. I'd go down there and load up on barrel proofs at $75 a bottle. Good luck now.
Wow.
You know.
No, now the secondary on that's like what, like probably $400 for a bottle. It's absurd. Yeah.
That's not nearly as shocking as the small batch and the single barrel. That those have gone crazy because those were
good.
Hey, I would buy it every day. No knock, but I don't think they're phenomenal bourbons. The single barrel and the small batch, they're good. But
I will
the
trade
fact
this.
that they've gone so crazy.
I will trade this for a Midwinter Nights.
Midwinter
Nights trade.
It doesn't trade that high. Brendan,
We'll see.
Have you bought
Just
anything this
wait.
last week? Or are you looking for anything?
Nope, still looking for the couple scotches. If people want to keep a lookout for me, the Lagavulin 11 edition, Nick Offerman edition, finished in Guinness cask. Ooh, that was a good pop. That I'm looking for. Lefroy Cardias, the Pedro Jimenez cask strength. That's another scotch I'm looking for. That's about it. I'm being a good boy until we go to upstate New York and find some pretty cool stuff up there. Last time I said I came away with a Winter Night Dram at about $80. So hopefully, fingers crossed, shopping near Canada will help me out again in a month or so, week or so at this point.
Elliott, do you have anything that you've bought over the last week or anything you're looking for? Any pursuits or purchases?
I was at the local ABC today, and just to keep my points going, I bought this year's Pinhook Bourbon. I think the Pinhooks are a pretty decent value.
Yeah.
You know, I like them. I think they're, a nice variety to have in your collection. So I bought a Pinhook today. Like everyone else, Russell Reserve 13 as soon as that lands. I'm always looking to finish my BTAC collection. I do not have a SAS. I have a Handy. I don't have a SAS. So I need to add that to get my full collection there. And then I think a lot of people are kind of snooping around Costco waiting for their Barton release of their small batch, single barrel, and, the Kirklands.
We got the small batch.
Try. There you go.
Yeah.
We got the small batch.
So
Maybe they'll send up some sample. Well, they can't send. No, maybe they will drive up some samples.
Yeah, we'll drive up some samples because sending it through the mail is illegal.
Yeah, but I think
we'll drive it up.
Right. But I think, the Kirklands will be fun, to kind of try, they're Barton sourced. And like I said, I'm a 1792 fan in general. I think because they do so many different types of bourbons and they're not even nearly readily available like they used to be, but you can get your hands on them.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm looking for at this point in my life, but I did pick up a couple of bottles from a buddy that through Bourbon Enthusiast. He's sending these to me. He didn't want anything, so he's sending these to me. I got a Smoke Wagon small batch, a new riff like Bourbon Enthusiast store pick, and then an American Prairie High West finished in. Am I saying this right? Banyuls, Banyuls. I don't know.
Probably not. I think it's Beignet.
It's not.
Beignets.
But talking about finishes in High West, I got one of those. So picked those all up at retail. So that's kind of fun to get stuff at a good deal. Well, retail's not a good deal. It's just what you should pay. But so that's what I picked up this week. Have not been delivered just yet. All right, that's it. That's it for pursuits and purchases. That's it for the show. We will be reviewing with Elliott on Thursday morning. Not really on Thursday morning, but it'll come out on Thursday morning. Russell's Reserve Single Barrel.
That's right, baby. Let's go.
Store pick. Tune in on Thursday morning, wherever you watched or listened to this. iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever.
We're also on OnlyFans now.
That's brutal. And we will review that. Elliott, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, man. This was a blast.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And like I said, I've been begging Brendan to get me on for a while, so I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've been trying to get you on as well, and Brendan's been shutting us down. So if you are looking to do a bourbon podcast once a week, we're looking for a replacement for one of our hosts. I won't say who.
Yeah, Brendan's out. Sorry,
the one with the worst internet. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks, guys, for tuning in and checking us out. It's Bourbon on a Budget on all social media platforms. We will see you guys on Thursday for the review. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.